In 1994, Dudley Moore, the brilliant comedian and pianist, began to realize that he was losing control of his body. He had trouble talking, playing the piano, even walking. But the big question was, why? It would take 4 years, one devoted friend, and the right medical specialist for Dudley Moore to discover finally what he was fighting and what it would take for him to survive. In 1998, as his body continued to inexplicably break down, Dudley Moore was desperate. Finally, his friend, Rena Fruchter, took him to see Dr. Martin Jeetzy, a New Jersey neurologist.
On Dudley's first visit, he was rather depressed about not being able to obtain a diagnosis. His major concern was being able to play the piano, though, and he wanted anything that would help him with that.
He took one look and said, he checked the eye movements, and one of the symptoms is slow vertical eye movements. And he said, I think it's PSP.
Moore finally had his diagnosis, but the news wasn't good. PSP, or progressive supranuclear palsy, is an extremely rare and hard-to-detect neurological disorder. The cause is unknown, but an estimated 20,000 Americans suffer from this incurable and debilitating brain disease. It is sometimes compared to Parkinson's, but without the characteristic tremors.
The classic symptoms of PSP include balance difficulty, rigidity of the limbs, slowness of movement, and loss of coordination of eye movements. Depression becomes quite common in later years. Additional symptoms include memory difficulties, slurring of speech, and difficulty swallowing.
For now, there are no drugs to cure the disease or stop its relentlessly progressive course. PSP is not fatal, but complications like pneumonia or choking could suddenly end Moore's life.
From what I understand, there's a coughing, choking, and swallowing problem with this disease, and people ultimately can die from pneumonia from having this.
How do you feel when you hear this?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. The thought of choking to death must be awful. I didn't find it very comforting.
Moore said he went public with his disease in order to reach out to other victims of PSP. He gave us extraordinary access to his new life, which includes weekly rehabilitation at the world-famous Kessler Institute.
Our goal is to maintain the quality of life as long as we can, as well as we can.
Dr. Thomas Galsky is in charge of Moore's treatment, including their weekly psychotherapy.
Tell me what the mood's like.
The mood is fine.
His body has, in a sense, betrayed him. The difficulty of having a humorous, quick, witty conversation with someone and being at a loss because you can't process that information as quickly as you've done in the past. It's extremely exasperating in those very little ways.
Yes, it is different than I used to speak.
Yeah. Gone? Is the thought gone?
Gone.
Okay.
Moore also meets with a speech therapist who helps him with his breathing, to relax, to speak simple words.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Excellent.
And simple phrases.
We are the hero of our own story.
Beautiful.
By the time he's finished, Moore is physically drained and mentally exhausted. But now, in the early stages of the disease, Moore's doctors want him to stay active. Even though he can no longer play, he lends his support to Music for All Seasons, a group that brings music to confined people in nursing homes, prisons, and on this day, a hospital.
Mr. Moore, I'm not Bo Derek, but I love you just as well.
That's nice.
But going out in public can be treacherous. The disease affects coordination and balance, and Moore often falls, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. But you never know when it's going to happen.
No.
Just for Dudley to keep going, it's a struggle. He's courageous.
In some ways, this is Rena Fruchter's story, too. At great personal sacrifice, she has devoted herself to Moore and is always by his side. Dudley is so much a part of your life. You have to take care of him. You are with him around the clock. You're married. You have children. You have grandchildren. Are you a saint? Is she a saint, Dudley?
Yes.
She is. Certified
Yes,
saint?
Certifiable.
Certifiable.
Yes. She had endless compassion for me. And I just feel that she is extraordinary in that way.
Dudley, if it were not for Rena, is there anyone else to take care of you?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't imagine somebody taking over that role.
There is no one else in your life?
No, no.
You have 2 sons.
Yes.
Patrick is 23, and then there is a little boy of 4. But you don't see your children.
No.
Why not?
Because I don't want to deteriorate before them.
You don't want them to see you like this?
No.
Don't you think they might want to see you?
I suppose so.
Most of your life you've had to overcome severe problems. Now this. Are you bitter? Do you feel cheated?
I feel, no, I don't feel cheated. I feel as though it was good that I did my shows before this happened. And I got Arthur out and 10 out.
And people will always love you in those roles and
Yes.
remember you in those roles. Don't they?
Yes. And so,
That's so sad that it could have affected his work and that it was coming on and nobody knew. I think that's tragic.
It just hurt me deeply that that kind of person would have his mind attacked. His greatest challenge will be bravely facing it, whatever that means. Finally coming to some kind of terms with it.
What is your prognosis?
I think that I'm going to die. I don't know. I don't think that it's going to be pleasant.
What do you miss most?
What I miss most, playing the piano. I love it so much, and I miss it very much.
Dudley Moore wanted to tell his story, even though it is painful, not just to say that he is ill and not intoxicated, but also because some people may suffer for years with PSP without knowing what's wrong, for we don't know what causes this disease. We can only hope that Dudley Moore's story will help them, and that one day research will find a cure or at least slow the progress of PSP. Dudley has great courage. And if you want more information about PSP, you can visit our website, abcnews.com. We'll be right back.